While this seems like a pretty basic runout, it actually isn't that easy. The 6 to the 7 is the key position to make getting from the 7 to the 8 as guaranteed as possible. This is the video you've all been waiting for because it will teach you so many different things about position play with a total of over 40 different shots. One thing I require you to understand is that you definitely want to be on that side of the straight line, because then the cue ball goes naturally towards the 8 ball and of course the 9 ball. If not, you're going away from the balls. So what is the pinpoint position, the ball in hand position? It's really close to being straight, because then all you have to do is just play a follow shot, go one rail into the long rail and then nicely towards the 8 ball with a very simple out. And if you're further to the left of the straight line where you can't go into the long rail and not even go directly into the gap, then you definitely have to go to the other side of the 8 ball where you just can play a follow shot again and then have a combination on the 8, just like we talked about in the beginning. And if you're even further away from the straight line, maybe here, then don't play it into the side pocket. Instead, play it into the corner pocket, just play a follow shot and go nicely towards the 8 ball. But to be honest, if you're that far away from your desired point, then you did something wrong. But that's exactly why I'm going to teach you the principles today. The first principle we're going to talk about real quick is called going into the line. So remember, we want to end up close to the straight line on the 7 ball. And what happens if we're playing the shot? The cue ball will travel along our desired line or close along our desired line, and that way speed control is much easier. So have a look at the cue ball path, how close it is to our desired line. You can see we have a nice angle on the 7 ball here. Now just compare this to the 5 ball in this case and the cue ball here, trying to end again on this spot. Just watch what the cue ball is doing. As you can see, here would be perfect, it crosses the line. But even if the cue ball just travels one revolution too far, then you're suddenly straight. So if you have to shoot the 7 ball into the side pocket because you're playing 8 ball for example, then don't cross the line. Instead, try to find a path where you can go into the line. So going into the line is a really nice principle to make things a lot easier for you, but you have to consider something, the next principle that I'm calling staying away from the object ball. What does that mean? Again, let's play the same shot we played before. Remember, we want to end up close to straight on the 7 ball. Watch the straight line and watch the cue ball. As you can see, again, I was going really nice close to the straight line, but in this case, I just have too much angle to actually follow into the rail, might even not enough angle to go nicely towards the 8 ball. Let's play this shot real quick and see how close I can get. Well, I have no chance to get to the right side of the 8 ball. I'm going to play high here on the cue ball. And you can see the cue ball goes to the left side of the 8 ball. So even though the cue ball was traveling a really nice path, I had no chance to actually get nicely on this side to the 8 ball. Why is that? If the cue ball is traveling inch perfect along your desired line, then everything's fine. But if the cue ball just deviates a tiny bit from your desired line, then the closer you get to the object ball, the more and more you will be off angle. As you can see, if the cue ball stops here, we don't have a lot of angle on the 7 ball, but if the cue ball travels further, then we will have more and more angle on the 7 ball. Or if the cue ball travels along this line, then at the beginning we are still fine, but if we get further, we will actually get to the wrong side of the 7 ball. So as you just saw, you don't want to try to get too close to the 7 ball if you're not traveling inch perfect on your desired line. On the other hand, you don't want to leave the cue ball frozen to the rail even though you have the right angle, because then the shot making process of course gets more difficult. Aiming with side spin or just putting enough rotation on the cue ball is also difficult. So you have to find the right mix between staying away from the 7 ball but not too far away that the whole shot itself gets just too difficult for you to execute. But the good news is it's not always that difficult. In this 9 ball situation, I want to end somewhere on that line, of course not too far away, so I'm playing the shot like this and the cue ball travels nicely along that line. But of course I get not everyone is a left-handed player, so you can also play the shot like this. You can see the cue ball doesn't travel perfectly along the line, but it doesn't really matter. In that case, you always can be a bit more to the right, a bit more to the left of that line, and you will always have a shot. Now let's have a look at that 8 ball. I want to be close to that line, and again I'm using 2 rails to go into the line of the 8 ball. And with this angle I have on the 8 ball, I can travel closely to the straight line of the 9 ball again. And now let's get back to our initial situation. If you're straight on that 7 ball, then all you can do is either just follow the ball into the pocket or draw back. So if you would be in a situation that you are perfectly straight on the 7 ball, then my suggestion would be to just follow the cue ball a bit, try to bank the 8 ball into this corner pocket and play the kiss shot on the 9 ball into this corner pocket. Of course, you could also play a safety shot instead. If the cue ball ends up a bit to this side, then we still can get to that 8 ball by either playing this shot with high and left spin, going to play the combination afterwards, or we're just going to use a bit less left spin and a huge stroke to actually try to get to that side of the 8 ball. And if you're having more angle, for example, you're here, then of course you have no chance to play the shot in with just left spin and go the same path. Then you either have to draw the cue ball with low right and go to the side to the 8 ball where you can play it into the corner pocket. Or you can play it with follow and right spin and go 4 rails to the same spot on the table for the 8 ball. The only thing I don't like about playing the 7 into the side pocket is that our position window is actually very small and you have to be really precise with your cue ball movement. And now imagine we're not playing 9 ball anymore, we're actually playing 8 ball. So this time you're not able to play that combination because the 8 ball has to go in last. So this takes the position on the table completely out where the cue ball naturally goes towards here. So that's why I'm going to show you a couple of alternative shots to get from the 9 ball to the 15 ball, and you could basically play the 9 ball into any pocket on the table. So let's start with this pocket, and in this case I just want to bring the cue ball into this area here. Again, I don't want to end up straight, but either angle really works here. Let me show you how this would look. Just using some right spin here. And yes, I know I'm crossing that line, that's true. But as I mentioned, I have a couple of options if I'm ending here. If the position is too short, then you have to go 2 or maybe even 3 rails. With less angle, we just have to stun over and use a touch of left spin on the cue ball. With even less angle, all we have to do is just play a follow shot. By the way, while you're waiting for the cue ball to arrive, if you're enjoying this video so far, please leave a thumbs up. If you want to, you can also draw the cue ball, but keep in mind this requires more cue action. With more angle you can follow again, but you have to use a touch of left spin. Keep in mind, aiming gets a bit more difficult. We can also follow with outside spin, that way aiming is easier and the cue ball path is more predictable. And with even more angle you can just follow the cue ball with a touch of spin to go 2 rails. And you can also add more spin to go 3 rails again. I can also play that 9 ball into the same pocket. For that I'm going to cheat the pocket to the left. This means I'm cutting the 14 ball thin here. And as you can see, that way I have a very natural angle on a 9 ball where all I have to do is just go 1, 2 rails towards the 15 ball. By the way, a very common and important shot. And all I have to do is just change the amount of right spin to either get to here, with more right spin get more to the right. Let me show you how this would look. And a very nice shot on a 15 ball. With just a bit of an angle, it's the best to just draw the cue ball back either into the long rail or with a bit more angle directly up table. If we're having the angle to the other side, then we're going to play a follow shot and use right spin, and the right spin will spin the cue ball around 2 or maybe even 3 rails. And with even more angle, we're just going to play a follow shot and we have to use right spin to keep the cue ball on the right hand side of the table. And if an opponent's ball is actually blocking this path, then we're going to stun and use some inside spin to spin the cue ball around 2 or maybe 3 rails. I'm pretty sure a lot of you would try to get a close to straight in line into this corner pocket, but I definitely wouldn't recommend to try to do that, because what happens if the cue ball is actually on that side of the straight line, then the cue ball goes into that direction and you have absolutely no chance, or a really difficult shot to get the cue ball towards here. What happens if the cue ball is too far on that side? Then of course the cue ball goes into here and just can go into that direction. So in those two cases you have to pull off a really difficult shot. That's why I wouldn't recommend to make the 9-ball into this corner pocket. And what we could also do is to play the 9-ball into this side pocket. It's basically the same position as before, just a bit softer, cutting the 14 ball very thin this time. And you can see that way we have a position into the side pocket. And believe it or not, this pocket is actually the pocket where you have the biggest margin for error regarding your speed control and your exact position on the cue ball. If we end up too short, then we always have that plan B with the corner pocket and just a follow shot. But even with just a bit less angle, we can already play the 9-ball into the side pocket and go nicely towards the 15-ball. With less angle we have to work a bit harder because we have to stun the cue ball up table, but it's still a natural path. And if we end up on the wrong side, we can play a follow shot and use right spin. So this means when we're playing position for the side pocket, we have the whole green area to get a nice shot on the 9-ball, just don't get straight. Your homework will be to understand why we didn't talk about the last remaining pocket. Watch this video over and over again until you understand why, and once you do, I will guarantee you've made a huge step in understanding position play. By the way, if you want to measure your skill level in position play and 5 more areas, track your personal progress and even compare yourself with the average pool player, then head over to the link below and get my playing ability test. And the big question, how would I recommend to play this shot then? Well, it depends a bit on your skill level. If you're very precise with your cue ball control, then the obvious choice would be to play the 9-ball into this side pocket, just because you don't have to travel a lot with the cue ball. That 14 ball is hanging right over the pocket. This means you can actually control the path of the cue ball with the thickness of the hit. If you're not very good at precise cue ball control, then I would recommend to try to make the 9-ball into the side pocket, just because, as we talked before, your margin for error regarding the cue ball position on the table is really big, and you will always have a kind of natural shot to go towards the 15 ball. What you could also do is go actually 1, 2 rails and here on the table where we have the natural shot, or just go 1 rail towards this position on the table and have a couple of options to actually get to this position on the table. And now you have exactly 2 options. Either pick your next lesson, or why wouldn't you just subscribe to the channel and ring the bell notification to get notified once I'm uploading new content? Wouldn't that be amazing? Yes, it definitely would. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching guys, and as always, see you at the next lesson. Take care.